Thank you, Art. Well, if you've got a man in your life, you know how hard it can be to get them to the doctor. But June is Men's Health Month, and the statistics are alarming. Joining us now is Amplify by Gunderson's Dr. Will Klein to talk about why men need to prioritize routine and preventative health care. Good morning, Dr. Klein. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. This is definitely a very important topic, and the numbers are startling. Some new figures came out from the FDA showing men's life expectancy is 5.4 years less than women. So what do you think is behind this gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference, and it's something to definitely think about and try to figure out what we can do. We know some of the biggest causes are things like heart disease, cancer, also things like suicide or accidents or unintentional injuries, like things from professions or risks in certain jobs. But,
so men do tend to take a few more risks. Is that why too, would you say?
Yeah, I think, and there's also certain things like, what we'd call like risky behaviors sometimes, like smoking, drinking, maybe doing something that you wouldn't have done another time when you thought about it more, things like that.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. And so you have mentioned that, the topic of men's health isn't talked about enough. We know that it's hard to get the men in our lives to the doctors for sure. Why is it that men avoid health care?
Yeah, good question.
That's what you're trying to figure out, right?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of socialization, factors, like we've all heard things like, oh, you should tough it out, or if it's not broke, you shouldn't really try to fix it. Like maybe if you just ignore that, it'll go away. And I think obviously in certain situations that can be useful in life, but I think when it comes to your health, that if you can fix a small problem, it's a lot better than fixing a big problem. I mean, if you can kind of prevent things, it can go a long ways. Yeah,
we know preventative care and catching things early is so important. So what are the biggest health threats that men are facing that could be prevented, that they should be, paying attention to, looking out for?
Yeah, so probably the biggest one is heart disease in general. So trying to catch things like high blood pressure early, and, doing things early on to kind of correct that can make a really big difference when you kind of compound it over decades of life. Things like high cholesterol, cancer screening for cancers like colon cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, depending on your risk factors. All these things are probably some of the biggest things.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And these are all things that, just meeting with your doctor, you're going to go over, you're going to run tests and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And talk through family history, risk factors, all that kind of stuff.
Right, okay, yeah, so that's why it's good to get into the office, right? And so what age should men start getting serious about preventative care, and then what should they be doing?
Yeah, I think it's never too early. So I think we're all used to, going to the doctor pretty regularly through probably high school for sports physicals and stuff like that. And then I think we definitely see a decrease in like the 20s and 30s when people feel like they're healthy and they don't really have any issues. But those are, I mean, that's a great time to get established, to find a primary care doctor who you're going to be able to talk with and have a relationship with, and kind of identify some of these things early. What kind of things do we have to look for more carefully? What kinds of things are small issues now that we can kind of start optimizing?
Yeah, for sure. I found in my personal experience, at least having a doctor that you can connect with, and make that appointment with is so much easier than having to go and find a new doctor, because that's just one more barrier, right?
Absolutely.
That's that one less thing that we need. So for the women watching who are trying to get their husbands, fathers, whoever it is in their life to get to the doctor, what is your advice to them, or maybe even men themselves who, like you're saying, think, oh, I don't need to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all been there where someone tells us to do something and tells us over and over. And for some reason, we all kind of keep falling into that pattern. But I think sometimes that's not the most effective, but if you can kind of work with that person and kind of help them realize that taking care of their health is not only going to help them, it's going to help all the other people who are important to them in their life, and kind of coming at it from a message of love and caring, I think that can be effective.
And for sure the preventative care too, because that is so important, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then mental health too. Men's mental health is also something that's not talked about. And so the men need to know that they can come to the doctor if they're having concerns with not just their physical health, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it comes back to some of the socialization stuff. Like a lot of times guys are maybe not used to talking about that, or they just they don't know where to start. But I think getting established with someone where you can kind of have a conversation about, are these just little blips in the road that are making things more difficult, making you feel more stressed? Or is it like, is this a bigger thing that we can kind of do more to work on?
Right, okay. And that might be easier than talking to a friend or someone they know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have someone who's kind of unbiased, and we're just here for you.
For sure. And okay, so Men's Health Month, the perfect time to get started in a routine, right? Anything else that you want to say to the men out there who may be putting off care?
I think just, you don't have a lot to lose. Come find somebody who you can talk to and get established and hopefully work towards getting healthier.
Okay, yeah, at least take that first step, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, Dr. Klein, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot.
Stay with us. We're back right after this.